Good evening, everybody. Let me just make sure this is working. Yeah. So somebody said today in our session that they had a parking lot and they would like to put a quick facade on it, and I showed a parking deck that I had done somewhere in England, and they said, "Ooh, look at that! How did you do that?" Well, okay, just a short one on how I did that. Now, this is going to come in two parts, so I'm just going to demonstrate these parametric driven masses again. I keep banging on about it across all the tutorials, but I think it's a great example of a really dumb thing being driven parametrically, and it's just massively useful for scheduling, etc., at mass stage. So I've mounted this facade that you guys might have seen earlier onto this, and I'm also going to demonstrate what the pattern button does. Air of mystery in the room on that one. And I think it's a crucially important tool if you're going to start seriously using Revit as a parametric design tool. So, as you can see here, this is a dumb mass that I've just thrown into a naked template. It is bold in place, so I'll just click it. It has a reference line, hosting it on its level 1. Always use reference lines. Model lines, yeah, they're just a laugh. Reference lines are your friend. Always use them. So that is hosted in here. It's the usual vast array of constraints and materiality and all of that. And just to recap, don't be afraid. This is just so I can have multiple masses in the same family. I can create a sort of mini city, so setting different numbers of floors per mass, etc., driving this equation down here. So you just have to put in your floor heights and number of floors, and it multiplies, blah blah blah. So I also mentioned today that there's a shared parameters file that I've got. In here you'll see I've just got a couple of those shared parameters loaded, but obviously I won't try and chase that down right now, but you know, there's district and color, and you can load up number of windows or whatever might be your fancy as a shared parameter, or whatever you program the model with. And the materials and finishes, good old materials and finishes, underrated. Okay, so I'll just hit that. Now, I'm going to make another one of these just from scratch, so you guys can see how it all goes together. I say from scratch, I'm going to do this, which is copy. Because this mass is all loaded up with parameters, I'm not going to try and spend the next 2 hours trying to put it back together. That's why I made it in the first place. I'm just going to kill that. Going to kill that. Okay, so rewind. Hide. Shoe. Click into place. What we're going to do is we're going to create a grid to mount the data panel on. So I'm going to click that tab until you get the surface you want. Yeah. Divide. Simple so far. Now I always have a habit of using the maximum spacing toggle creating these things, simply because it gives me a dimension as opposed to a division, and it's just makes my life a little bit easier. If you're trying to model the family, it's just best practice that if your building is 30 meters high, make the family 30 meters. And okay, we might be stretching it to 60, but it's pretty tough making a family that's 4 millimeters high stretch 50,000 millimeters up a facade. So always try to relate the two together. If you can, if it's a panel and it's going to be, well, somewhere to 10 meters, make your panel in meters, somewhere between 5 and 10 meters. It just again brings a sense of reality. I mean, I'm not saying Revit can't do it, but the math gets pretty hard and things start breaking, CPUs start burning out. So actually what I'm going to do is change that one to done. Is that how I did it? Yeah, that's how I did it. Change that to that. So yeah, so that's starting to look like a facade. I think I've made this 20 meters long, so consider it a fantastic Sterling Prize winning bundle of blue awesomeness. To make life a little easier, we're going to come up here and click our display representation. Turn on nodes so we can use them. There's other things in here that we can talk about later. This one here is quite useful, but different tutorial for that. Turn on nodes. You'll see if I isolate that, we now have a grid with points on it. Okay, so this is where it might start getting a little exciting. I'm going to go to the panel. Oops, wrong button. Windows 10, isn't it great? Okay, you're looking. This is an adaptive family. Obviously, you can go pinch this. I'm not going to take this through step by step. This will probably take a little bit too much time, and we'll have lots of work to do. But you might look at this and go, oh, hey, that's really simple. Oh, geez, I don't know why we're watching this. This isn't all that simple. This is made up of a couple of distinct families, and those of you sitting in the room today, I said I've got a certain way of doing things, I've got a certain artistry, and I've got certain families that I've built over time. If I zoom right in here, you'll see this little chopper. Get to the chopper. This is something, I build an awful lot of these, literally just to do dumb stuff. Revit has a terrible tendency of not knowing which way is up. By making a family that can only reside as up in a given location, that makes life a little easier. I'll just come into that so you can see it. Again, adaptive families. Adaptive families are your friend. You should have tried modeling in Revit before adaptive families. Jeez. This is essentially a line. I know earlier I said model lines, what are they for? Well, this is what they're for. This is a top and a bottom point. So when I load this into any given project, I click once, I click twice. And essentially what happens, if you can understand it, is this will align itself to whatever host I place it on, and I'll get a nice crisscrossy perpendicular world. Now, not just that, but this is parametrically driven. There's a line between here and here. There's a host point on that. This point up here is hosted on that point, so that when I do that, it does this. Yeah, so it flexes in that direction. So now this is a really dumb family with a single parameter. I'm deliberately dumb on this stuff because, believe me, I've made things that befuddle the imagination. And whenever I go back to them years later, I go, oh, couldn't be bothered, just do it again. I just can't work out the parameters. So in here you'll see each one of these points has got the same offset on it. And I've got a little formula in here, which is really useful because, again, Revit doesn't really know which way is up or down, so I just tell it. So that offset 1 equals offset 2, and I've got a negative integer generated by this formula. So I put in 0.41 in offset 1, and it automatically drives the other point in a negative direction. So this guy here, he is negative direction, so he's being influenced by this one, this parameter here, so which is the positive direction. So if I pull it this way, you'll see the entire thing does that. Now, obviously, I could, if I wanted to get exciting, I could say, well, this point over here is driven by that offset distance over 2 in the parameters. So this could be 50% that way. Well, that's 100% that way. And I could drive it in here, and if that's 100%, I can make that 75, and make that 25, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, keeping up? Okay. That's why I make these things, simply because they're dumb, they're stupid, and you can take it and you can influence it. And it makes building what we're going to build in a minute really, really simple. So if I go back to my family this time, you'll see I've loaded that. And in it comes click, click, hosts itself on here. Then what I've done is I've taken a reference line, hosted it on this guy. Yeah, and again, another kind of Revit top tip when it comes to modeling this stuff. If anybody's ever done woodwork shop, sorry, that sounds a bit crazy. You work in the waste. You saw your lump of wood in the waste. So if you're going to build a panel, yeah, give yourself an outer frame of reference lines and then host your panel edges on those. So you'll see here I've got this guy. There's another line. If I click like that, that's the actual panel. Yeah. And the whole thing is hosted on. Oops. There's a line that runs from 1 to 2, and there's a line that runs from 3 to 4, essentially setting up a structural grid, if you like. And then these reference lines are hosted on that, and then this is just a simple extrusion. Okay, but like everything else in this tutorial series, come tap me on the shoulder. I've just run through that at the speed of light, but just to give maybe a little bit more insight into how I model things, and there's lots of other people out there who model things totally differently. Some people model it correctly. Anyway, back to loading this into a project. I think this is loaded already, obviously, as I got there. That one. So the family is already in here, so I've got to go find it. It'll be under generic. Generic. You'll see it's loaded both in here. So equal distance helper parallel 0, 1. Bidirectional across double helper. So yeah, you can see I get innovative when it comes to naming some of these things, but my suggestion is you put the project code at the top of it, then you kind of know where it came from in years to come. So I'm just going to hit family 1, which is the panel family, not named yet, create instance. Okay, there it is, floating in space. Hooray, here we go. So I go 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so there's the family loaded on the grid. And you're sitting there saying, oh my god, do I have to do that across everything? No, you don't. So remember that button with the P that I said go home and press? I'm going to press it. Lots of them. And because it's a parametrically driven model, we can click this and say, I want some more of them. And I can go, meter. So this is back to what I was saying about iterative iterations, iterative families in Revit. You know, any long-term user of Revit knows that's what Revit does a lot of. It's very good at repeating things. Pattern Repeater came in 2012, 11, maybe? And before it was a world of pain. Yeah, you would have to try and host these things. Well, it was just a frigging nightmare. And you always ended up just copying them. But the great thing about this is all of these are hosted on my grid. So essentially, whatever I do to the grid, these things will flex with it. Yeah. And a couple of versions ago, they brought in an awesome little button next to this called Remove Repeater. So if I click that, I'm back to good old family mode. So they don't associate with each other, because essentially what you're looking at as a repeater, they're a dynamic block, for want of a euphemism from the world of 2D codology that is AutoCAD. These things, obviously if I make the building taller, they'll stretch with it. In fact, I can demonstrate that. That's probably a useful thing. So back out of the mask, you'll see it's created these things. Just like that. And you'll see my mass, which has some instance parameters from earlier. Here, I think it's that one. Well, let's say someone drops by and says, I want a 14-story retail mall, Korea. And it needs to be 6 meters. So wash, I just change it, the mass stretches, as do my panels, okay? And then along comes someone and says, oh, you can't build a panel that runs from the top to the bottom. And you can just go, okay, we'll go back in and say, my grid is now not none anymore. Let's not go crazy here. So I've only got a laptop. Change it to 4. Now I've got 4 runs. And obviously you could go in here and go to town on affecting all of these things one by one. Incidentally, didn't talk about the twist. So because I've got these things hosted on my little pattern repeater chopper thing, I've got a parameter set up that adjusts this offset here. So this point, sorry, this thing has got a directional offset. So what I can do is when in family mode, sorry, project mode, I'm going to just break it for a sec so I can show you back to the start. Select the family. You'll see over here it's got a dimension 01. Now this is just me at play. Okay, I haven't been serious about this. I just needed a panel in a hurry. But obviously you could come in here and really engineer this to do exactly what you wanted to do. I just wanted to say make it twist. I don't care how. And you'll see I've put an offset. So 0.3 is chappy, is extendable if you like. And I'm sure I could probably push that until I could break it. It'll say you can't do that anymore. But just get rid of the rest. Yeah, so you can have a play. I mean, you know, this stuff's starting to look kind of cool. I'd go for something like that. You know, but because it's a family, you could come in here and you could divide that up again and put also spikes on it. Go crazy, put holes in it, plug it into dynamo and turn it into a pretzel. I don't know. But you know, that starts to turn into a pretty cool facade. We've seen some of these on parking decks lately, Leeds, which is kind of cool. Which I'll admit was the kind of inspiration for the 30-second parking panel I needed. I wonder how far I can push it. Oh, yeah, I'm pressing myself. That's pretty cool. Okay, but you know, I can come back in then and I pattern repeater again. Then I can just take the whole frigging model and just go divide, change it to maximum spacing, change that to 1, that to 1. Yeah, you see where I'm going. So it's like on nodes. It's really simple. It's really confusing. Those. So I've already got it mounted on here. I don't have to go searching for it. I can just click it, right click. I can't because it's a repeater. Just for speed's sake, I'm just going to remove the repeater board now. They want to go try it themselves because they're excited. Let me see. Select. Create similar. Create similar is your friend. When you click create similar, for those who don't know, you are creating a family with exactly the same parametric routines aboard. So you don't have to go back in and reprogram each individual one. 1, 2, 3, 4. So to that point, you'll see that this guy is still reading 2 meters. One of the cool things too, actually, if I hit pattern repeat, it kind of dumbly goes. If I select the original one that made the repeater, you'll see it says it's got its geometry on board. And actually, sorry, in fact, you can pick any one of these things, and you'll see it's got its parameters on board. So then when I go change that to 10, I know it worked. See it worked across them all. Hooray! So let's push all of those in that direction. And again, going back in, and this works across everything. Believe me, this is really, really dumb stuff. See, the harder you make it, the more chance of it going completely buckaroo. I mean, you could iterate this out to CPU melting levels of complexity, and believe me, I've tried it. and melted a CPU or two. So again, if I change the height of my thing, someone says, Korea, we do 10 meters in Korea. And boom, up it goes, etc., etc. And the great thing about it too is obviously this is mass, so I can come into small screen world here, schedule quantities, save this, mass, schedule. You'll see the parameters that are on board from the shared parameters file are in here too. So I is I'm just going to show gross floor area. Just for a better thing to grab. This is totaling all the floors on my mass right now. I think. Oh yeah, probably needed to put in level, didn't I? It's probably more like number of floors. Not giving me level. Never mind. I'll figure that out later. But you get the idea. It means I can create tons and tons of these masses in a master plan, and it'll total up here, and I can have district and square meterage, etc., etc. Sorry, just a little aside, but so you can immediately see the power and the usefulness of this. Anyway, again, thank you for watching. That wasn't too long, I hope, and I hope it was useful. Please come and tap me on the shoulder if you want to know more, and I can demonstrate other cool things too at the same time. Thank you. Good night.